All right. Well, I think we've explored every possible greeting for Shabbat, just about. And so hopefully everybody has the chat box open. Hopefully everybody has the prayer book in hand or on screen. And we begin with beautiful music.
Hello, everybody. Whether it's a Guten Shabbos or Shabbat Shalom or Shabbat Shout Out or whatever it is, we're going to start off with a version of Hine Matov that's really beautiful and uplifting. So please join me.
Thank you, Cantor. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Officially, Shabbat Shalom and Good Shabbos. It's so great to be together tonight. My goodness, it seems like the past several Friday nights we were celebrating Shabbat and Sukkot and Simchat Torah, and before that it was the High Holy Days. So we are still, oh my goodness, we're still in the month of Tishrei, the Jewish month of Tishrei. We did 4 major holy days, and of course Shabbat is the major holy day, the only Jewish holiday mentioned in the Ten Commandments. It's so great to be together for Shabbat, to experience the joy and wholeness that is the Sabbath. May we all enjoy this time to take in and experience all the good, all that is holy around us and within us. In this sacred time and in the holiness of our homes, may we let go of the fears, let go of the frustrations of the past week as best we can, as we just give ourselves this time to slow down, this time to reflect, this time to enter the peace and the joy that is Shabbat. Well, the beautiful music of Shabbat makes our celebration all the more joyful, and Cantor now has a song most appropriate for tonight.
Definitely. So, as I'm sure many of you are aware, we had Simchat Torah last week, so we made our way back to the beginning of the Torah. So this week's parasha is Bereshit, is Genesis, the story of creation. And so this song is called Hine Tov Me'od, which you'll find on page 7 in your Siddur, and we'll put it up on the screen for you too. It's a really nice upbeat melody that kind of reminds us of how very good it is that that we have this world. So we'll put that on the screen for you. Page 7 of the Siddur. Hine Tov Me'od. Behold, very good. It's very good.
What a great song, Cantor. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, Erev, it is evening, and where all of us are, it is evening, unless somebody's in Australia right now. Is it daylight in Australia right now? Is everything flipped around? Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Well, I don't know if you can know what my Erev background is here. I'll give you a hint if you can see that, if you recognize what that is. Sort of looks like the Lincoln Memorial, but it's not. It is Yerushalayim. That's the Dome of the Rock. So it is Erev in Yerushalayim. It's Erev wherever we are, and how great to be together. And it is very good. It is Tov Ma'od that we're all together. Let's turn to page 6 in our prayer booklet. We're going to bring in Shabbat with some more beautiful music. Shalom Aleichem. We invite in the Malachei HaShalom, the messengers of peace, to make our Shabbat all the more special and joyful and meaningful.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai.
Thank you, Cantor. Did I say Lincoln Memorial? I meant Jefferson Memorial. Right, Emily? Emily Bergman, our temple librarian extraordinaire, who is with us tonight, who's going to bring in the light and the warmth and the joy of the candles. Hi, Emily. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
It's good to
So
see you.
I wanted to show you my candles,
Oh,
okay?
please.
Okay. So if Carolyn is on the Shabbat, Brian made these in Mommy, Daddy, and Me. They were gold at the time. They are still I have beautiful candlesticks, but I use my Mommy, Daddy, and Me candlesticks on Shabbat.
I recognize them. And
Right. He's now, for those of you who don't know Brian, he's now 28. So this has been a long time that we use these. And Philip, my older one, who's now 34, went on birthright. So he brought me these from Sfat, and it sits on a plate that he brought from Jerusalem.
I recognize
wow.
exactly those candles. I've been to that candle making factory store.
I'm sure everybody does.
So
Okay.
your Shabbat candle items, you've got Sfat represented. You have got, did you say Jerusalem or
Jerusalem. Right.
Jerusalem, and you've got Glendale, all represented.
Right.
Very nice. Well, Emily, it's so great to see you. Best to you and your family. And so if you will bring in the light and the warmth, if you will light those candles, and then Cantor's going to lead us in the blessing. We're on page 9, everybody. Page 9.
Do you want me to read a little reading?
Oh, yes. We'd love to
Please.
have you do that. Which one are you going for?
The second one, it seems very appropriate to Bereshit.
Absolutely. Thank you.
In the beginning, there was darkness, and the Spirit of God hovered over the darkness. Then God created light, and the work of creation was begun. As we kindle the Sabbath lights, we remember the majesty of creation and rejoice in our ability to witness it again.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Well, thank you so much, Emily. Thank you for bringing in Shabbat, and thank you for all those connections that you made. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. How are the kids doing? Everybody doing well?
Philip actually got COVID, but he's
Oh,
okay.
I'm so sorry. Oh, is he free of it, or he has it right now?
He just told me yesterday that he's 100% and he's been okayed by the Houston Health Department.
Oh, well, thank goodness.
Oh,
But his
thank
wife
God.
didn't get it. And she's pregnant, so I'm glad she
goodness.
didn't get it.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, wishing him a lot of healing and refuah shlema and
Yes.
health and safety to everybody in the family. Thank you, Emily. Thank you. It reminds us that we are still in the middle of a pandemic, and we still have to, stay healthy and stay safe. And so we're wishing Philip refuah shlema, all good things. Well, let us turn to page 13 in our prayer book, page 13. A prayer of gratitude. What would Shabbat be without a prayer of gratitude? What would Judaism be without a prayer of gratitude? Now, you know how we've been doing this. We like to have people do it antiphonally, and Cantor and I were doing a lot of that during the High Holy Days. We were doing a lot of responsive readings together. You can see on the top of page 13, that's two separate paragraphs. And if you would like to volunteer, if you got two people in your
Although we
home
do
there,
usually do
please
the family
just.
blessing first.
Yeah, I'm sorry?
The family blessing is on page 9. So
Thank
that's
you,
before it.
Cancer. Thank you. I'm gonna have that sort of emblazoned and scribed on my monitor. I've got 3 stickies that say it, and I still miss it every time. I'm gonna have to put it right on the top of the screen. So thank you. Yes. What would Shabbat be without a family blessing? So here at Temple Sinai, so we're at the bottom of page 9. We invite you to gather with your family who is with you and extend it to your family near and far as we join together in the family blessing.
May God bless you and keep you. May He shine His face upon you and grace you. May He lift His presence unto you and grant you peace. May God bless you and keep you. May she shine her face upon you and grace you. May she lift her presence unto you and grant you peace. And grant you peace.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Well, we've had some time to think about perhaps volunteering for that prayer of gratitude on page 13. Do we have any takers? Anybody who would like to do it? I'm looking around our virtual sanctuary. I do not see. Oh, Jackie, is that? Yes, let's have Jackie and Jess. You guys want to do it? Are you waving to say hello? Or are you waving to volunteer? Yeah, so hey Jackie, hey Jess, hey
Hi.
Jeff. We got the 3 J's in my family there in St. Louis. Shabbat Shalom. How's everybody doing?
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Well, great to see you. Well, so Jackie and Jess, would you like to lead that prayer of gratitude on the top of page 13?
We don't have it.
You don't? Okay. Oh, well, there
So
it
we do
is.
not.
Oh, yes, we
We
do.
do now. Oh, now we.
Yes, we do.
So the way this works is if somebody will take the first paragraph, and then if somebody else will take the second paragraph, right? And Jason's doing that with the
Okay.
cursor.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, I'll first. We thank you, God, for the gift of life. We thank you for the miracle of each new day, the sunrise and sunset, the moon and stars. We thank you for the blessings of family and friends, for all these miracles in our world.
Adonai, our God, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of our soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, ladies. That was wonderful. How's everything in St. Louis?
Pretty good.
Good.
It's getting kind
Good.
of cold.
Is it starting to get cold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is cold? Wow.
39.
Yeah, when I drove to work,
Ooh,
30,
that is
so.
cold.
I have a turtleneck on.
Well, wow, turtlenecks. We were
enough,
talking
yeah.
about how there's no need for a turtleneck in California.
We did talk about that.
So you guys, right, Cantor? We were talking about that. Guess how cold it was here in the San Fernando Valley today?
65?
95.
No way, are you
It should be
serious?
65. Just it should be 65. It was 95 degrees today.
95.
Wow.
Wow.
Crazy.
I'm jealous a little bit.
Well, be good to meet in the middle and have something like
I
60
agree with
or
that.
so it's great to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here and thank you for participating. It's
You're welcome.
wonderful to see you. Well, let's turn to page 14 in our prayer book. Jason, let's put this up. You've been doing such a great job. Jason Marks, our communication and Zoom manager. Let's put on page 14. There is the Shema. So we were talking about Simchat Torah now being in the book of Genesis. This is at the end when we sort of looked at Deuteronomy last week. So you can see on the top, and we're going to do the Shema in just a moment, you can see the very special lettering with the crowns, with the ornaments on top, and that's how it looks in a Torah scroll. It's not bent like that. It's not arcing like that in the Torah, but it does look like that, but without the vowels, of course, because there are no vowels in Torah. But this affirmation of our faith, one of the most important verses in the entire Torah from Deuteronomy, hear, O Israel, listen, O Israel, Adonai, the eternal our God, the eternal is Echad, the eternal is one. And I think we are instructed, we're guided to say this twice a day, 2 times a day. And the reason being is just so important to recognize that everything in this world that we're celebrating on this Bereshit, this weekly Torah portion on creation, everything in this world, it's multiple, it's various, it's diverse. It is got such variety and abundance, and it's all connected. It's all connected. It's all one. It's unified, and it's all unified in the divine and with each other. So we thank God for the recognition of the unity of the world, and we join together in this affirmation.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who was the chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, they have chief rabbis there. Wonderful rabbi and brilliant, and he's written a number of books. And it's his teaching that God loves diversity. And the example of that is all the different types of trees and different type of plants and the variety of life there is. And he's got some great teachings about unity based on that concept that God loves diversity. and Judaism does too. Do we have any takers for the Via Hafta? We're giving out so many honors tonight. Would anybody like to chant the Via Hafta and chant some Torah? Andrew Hain did it so beautifully, so wonderfully last week. All right. Is that Deb Johnson volunteering? Deb, thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. I'll do it. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם. בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשפתך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוציא אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם.
Yashar Kohen.
And you've
That
got
was wonderful,
the guinea
Deb.
pig.
He's a Jewish pig.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Deb. What was that about a Jewish pig? What did I miss?
Oh,
Because they have a guinea pig with them.
He's with him.
Oh, right. There he is. What's
Nibbling.
his name again? I keep forgetting his name.
That's Vinny.
Vinny.
He's named after Vin Scully.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Dare I ask, what is the status of the Dodgers?
They're down, I think, 3-1 now.
Eesh.
They won 15-3, and then they lost 10-2, I think. So it's roller coaster.
Oh boy. Well, all right. We'll keep a good thought, and maybe you can rub Vinny and see if that brings you good luck.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Deb. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. Well, I am very excited that we have rolled the Torah from the end to the beginning because Bereshit, the book of Genesis, is such a remarkable book of the Torah. It is so famous. It is so beloved. If you think about, famous English phrases, of course, the Torah is written in Hebrew, but versions of it, the English translations of it. So if you think about it, famous phrases in English. To be or not to be, right? That's one of the most famous, Shakespeare. And then how about in the beginning? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the Western world, that phrase is right up there with to be or not to be. And I put those two together, Shakespeare and the Torah, and I put them together because one of my favorite writers and interpreters of literature, Harold Bloom of blessed memory, who taught at Yale for decades, he actually passed away a year ago yesterday. So I'm going to say Kaddish for him tonight. Harold Bloom, the great Yale literary critic, who knew his Bible. He grew up Orthodox, and he knew his Bible quite well. He knew Hebrew quite well as Yiddish. We were talking about Yiddish. And he has compared sections of the Torah to Shakespeare. And I happen to agree with him. It's beautifully written, many sections of the Torah, and it has inspired the greatest English poets and writers, of the past several hundred years. It has inspired, the words of Torah have inspired not just Jewish people, but Christian folks and our Christian brothers and sisters and our Muslim brothers and sisters. It inspired them for thousands of years as well. So I thought we'd take a look tonight at the story of creation, but you may be surprised to find out it's not just one story. It is, Jason, this is your cue. It is a tale of two creations. See, I'm playing off Charles Dickens there. Tale of two cities. A tale of two creations. So the Torah begins, Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2 fit very nicely together, almost seamlessly, one might say, so seamlessly that you may not have recognized that there are in fact two different versions of the creation of our world according to the Torah. Two different versions, but they fit together so seamlessly. That again is the genius of the writers of our Torah. And so let's take a look. And so I've got Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 side by side. Now, hopefully you've got this full screen. And what you can do, too, to see this bigger and better is you've got two parallel lines in the middle. Jason, I don't know if we can point to that, but anyway, on your Zoom screen, there are two white parallel lines in the middle of your screen. If you pull on them to the right, which I'm doing right now, it will actually make the text of the handout a little bit bigger. So we have a tale of two creations, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. So let me go back before we look at this to Harold Bloom of blessed memory. Here's what Harold Bloom said about Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. He said, it is difficult, I'm quoting him now, it is difficult to overpraise either account of creation, chapter 1 or 2. Each touches the limits of literature. That's his phrase. The limits of literature. In other words, you can't do better. Each touches the limits of literature, the sublime in Genesis 1, and then he also praises Genesis 2, but I'll get into that a little bit later. He says the texts compete in power with each other. So let's put that back up, Jason. They are, in fact, two different texts. Our biblical scholars of the past 200-300 years say Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are written by two different writers, separated by at least a century, maybe more. Genesis 1, biblical scholars say, was written in around the probably the 8th century, 2,800 years ago. So Genesis 1, of course, that's the one we know so well. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Some English translations say the Spirit of God glided upon the face of the waters. Again, the literary artistry of the Torah. And of course, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. God divided the light from the darkness. So I want to stop there for a second and just sort of walk through. We could spend an hour on this, but I'm going to try to do just another 10 to 12 minutes. But I just want to share with you the beauty and the wisdom of the opening of the Torah, and what makes it so famous and memorable and inspiring is you've got in Genesis 1, God speaks the world into creation. And what we can learn from that, I think what Judaism takes from that, it's the power of language. In Judaism, words are powerful. In Judaism, words, not just God's words, but our words, can create worlds. And the flip side is our words can destroy worlds. God doesn't use words to destroy worlds, but God uses words in the Torah to create our world. That is the power of language. God said, let there be light, there was light. 10 times it says in Genesis 1, and God said, let there be this, let there be that. It happened 7 times in everything that was created in the world that Genesis 1 recounts. It says, and it was good, 7 times. So let's take a look at that. So first day, God created light. Second day, you're doing good, Jason. Second day, according to Genesis 1, the sky was created. By the way, this is not meant to be a science lesson. The Torah was not written by scientists. It is believed that Genesis 1 was written by a priest in the land of Judah, in the land right over my shoulder, in the 8th, perhaps 7th century. It was written by a priest who knew how to write extremely well, who had a great literary sense, because as Harold Bloom says, it touches the limits of literature. It cannot be surpassed. So second day, the sky was created. Doesn't mention it was good for whatever reason. Day 3, dry land, seas, plants, and trees were created according to the Torah. God saw that it was good. That is expressed twice. So making up, I guess, for the second day, you got 2, it was good on the third day. Fourth day, sun, moon, and stars were created. Here's what I'm talking about. This is not a science lesson. The priestly writer didn't know 2,800 years ago that you had to have a sun before you could have an earth and before you could have anything on the earth. So we don't look to the Torah for science. We look to the Torah for values. And what is the value being expressed here? The value being expressed here by the repetition 7 times that it was good is that this world we live in is something to appreciate. It's beautiful. It's something to be cherished. It is good. Life is not, as Shakespeare says, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury signifying nothing. Not that that was Shakespeare's voice. That was just his character. That's what Macbeth said. I believe it was Macbeth. Life on this earth is not a tale told by an idiot, signifying nothing. It actually signifies everything. And it is good. And we're going to see later, not as good as Cantor said, it is tov ma'od. It is very good. This world is very good. So when you think about Judaism and the optimism in Judaism, the hopefulness, the love of life, and the word that I love for that, the love of life, biophilia, a term that was coined by another great Jewish writer and philosopher named Erich Fromm in the 20th century. He coined the term biophilia, love of life, and it is his claim that I agree with that Judaism very much values biophilia, a love of life. Where does that come from? It comes from Genesis 1. God saying it's all good. So too we say it's good. So sun, moon, and stars on day 4. 5th day, animals that live in the sea and that fly. All right, so we've got the sea creatures and we got birds and fowl. God saw that was good. 6th day, animals that live on the land, all land animals, and finally human beings were created. God saw everything that God had made, and behold, it was very good. Tov ma'od, as Cantor sang. Now I want to go back to verse 27 again in Genesis 1. Verse 27. So let's go up a little bit, Jason. I'm sorry, I'm going to say go up, I mean go down. There we go. Verse 27 of Genesis 1. God created human beings in the divine image. Creating them in the image of God, and the Hebrew for the image of God is B'Tselem Elohim. Creating them male and female. So what other values do we have here? Human beings are created in God's image. This is perhaps one of the greatest teachings in all of Judaism, that we are created in God's image. And therefore, every human being, male and female, every human being is deserving of dignity and respect. And we can go even so far to say reverence. If we're created in God's image, should not every human being be approached with a sense of reverence? The world is still waiting. Judaism is still waiting for people to realize verse 27 in the Torah, when we treat every human being that they are in God's image, as if we are seeing God in the flesh. And I realize I'm now sort of expressing, what Christianity believes about Jesus. When I was in Dallas, Texas, so back to Emily Bergman, when I was in Big D, I was friendly with I had a friend who worked at a restaurant, and I'd go into the restaurant and we'd chat. She knew I was a rabbi, and she said, do you believe that Jesus was the Son of God? And I thought for a moment, and I said, yes, I do believe Jesus was the Son of God. And I believe that you're the daughter of God. And I believe that everybody in this restaurant is the son and the daughter of God. Where do I get that from? I get it from Genesis. I get it from chapter 1, that we are created B'Tselem Elohim. Every one of us in God's image, we are equal to each other. Everybody is equal, no matter their station in life, rich or poor, black or white, whatever country they're from. We are all created B'Tselem Elohim. That we learn from Genesis 1. So that's a little bit about Genesis 1. Let's take a look at Genesis 2. All right, so a close reading of the Torah, you will see it's different. The order of creation is different. These are the generations of the heaven and the earth when they were created in the day that the eternal God made earth and heaven. Now remember too, Genesis 1 said heaven and earth. Now it says earth and heaven. So we're getting a different perspective in Genesis 2. Genesis 1 is sort of God is transcendent. God is above. God is issuing orders, commands through speech, nothing more than speech, creating everything in the world. God is transcendent. God is creating order. In Genesis 2, it's a little bit muddier. It's a little bit earthier. It's a little bit more down to earth. God made earth and heaven, different perspective. Now we're not from above and below. Now we're below, going above. God made earth and heaven. Notice verse 5. No shrub of the field was yet on the earth. No plant of the field had yet sprung up. For the eternal God had not caused it to rain upon the earth. There was not a person to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. So again, we've got a different order here in Genesis 2. And we're going to see what's created first. We've got water. But then take a look at verse 7. And the eternal God formed man before everything else. The eternal God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul. This is such a remarkable verse. And by the way, it's saying man and not woman because Eve's going to come later. Eve's going to be taken from Adam's rib or Adam's side. But listen to how God creates human beings. In Genesis 1, God said, let us make man. Who's the us? The us is the sort of divine heavenly court. God is like a king, issuing decrees, issuing orders. Let there be. He's surrounded by a heavenly court. Let us make man in our image. It's very distant. It's very transcendent. It's very regal, majestic, other. Now God is almost down on the same level as Adam, the first human being, Adam, and Adamah, taken from the earth. This is punning. There's so much punning. There's so much wordplay in the Torah. Adam comes from Adamah. Adam, the first person, comes from the earth. And God is down there at that level with Adam, breathing into his nostrils the breath of life. I mean, picture God blowing air into this clay figure made from the dust of the earth, who now becomes a living being. It's such a radical idea. It's such an intimate expression of God. If God is transcendent in Genesis 1, God is immanent. Immanent meaning close by, indwelling, present with the creation of the first human beings. God is right there, down on the ground, making it happen at verse 7. Let's go down a little bit further. Thanks, Jason. Later, so Adam and Eve are created. I'm skipping the story for purposes of time. At verse 8 of now we're in chapter 3, but it's still the same story. Adam and Eve, they heard the sound of the eternal God moving about in the garden at the breezy time of day. Some translations, as you hear God walking, they heard God walking in the Garden of Eden. How much more anthropomorphic, how much more making God sound human can you get? That God is walking around the very garden that Adam and Eve are in. And it makes sense. If God was down on the ground blowing into Adam's nostrils, it makes sense that he's walking around that garden. Such a different conception of God than in chapter 1. So God's walking around the garden, and Adam and Eve have eaten of the fruit. Was not an apple, maybe a fig, maybe a pomegranate, not an apple. And the man and his wife, Adam and Eve, hid from the eternal God among the trees of the garden. At verse 9, the eternal God called out to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" Again, so intimate. God is now in conversation with his creation. "Where are you?" And Adam replied, "I heard the sound of you in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." And then God asked, "Who told you you were naked? Did you eat of the tree from which I had forbidden you to eat?" God sounds like a parent right now. "Did you do what I told you not to do?" Again, such a different conception of God. So you have God in chapter 1 as almost like a melech, like a king with a kingly court. And then you have in chapter 3 now, which is part of chapter 2, the story, God is like an avinu. God is like a parent. And this is where you get, by the way, the Jewish theology of God's transcendence, God's immanence, God as a ruler, as a sovereign, and God as a parent, Avinu Malkeinu. That concept comes from the telling of the creation of humanity. And we see it right there. He's like a parent. Who told you that you were naked? Did you do something I asked you not to do? Eat from the forbidden fruit? The man said, "The woman you put at my side, she gave me of the tree and I ate." So blame game starts right there. It's all Eve's fault. It wasn't me. This is where the blaming starts. The eternal God said to the woman, "What is it you've done?" So God's talking to Adam and Eve. God's having a conversation with them like a parent, like someone very close to them, someone very imminent in their lives. And the woman passes the buck to the serpent, the serpent duped me and I ate. So everybody's passing the buck. They're all going to suffer, unfortunately. Let's jump now down to verse 20. So you'd think God would be really upset at them, right? They were disobedient. And it says, the man named his wife Eve because she was the mother of all the living. And the eternal God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife, and God clothed them. Again, listen to the intimacy. Listen to the care. And when we say in Judaism, in our conception of God, that God is caring, that God is concerned with us, it's all right here. God is almost sewing garments, is a seamstress for Adam and Eve so they won't be cold. It won't be that cold weather like it is in St. Louis, and they won't get chilly. These are remarkable stories. These are remarkable teachings. There is so much wisdom. There is so much inspiration in these 3 chapters and in every chapter of the Torah. And that's why we reread it again and again. That's why it has inspired artists and poets and painters and sculptors and musicians throughout the Western world. These stories are so inspiring. And we've only scratched the surface. And I know I've gone long, and I've probably gone longer than I should have. But I just want to share with you the brilliance, the literary brilliance, and the wisdom and the values that we can find when we really read these verses of Torah closely. It's amazing what we'll find, the treasures that we'll find. And that's why I refer to these topics and these conversations as Torah gems. These are treasures. These are treasures of wisdom and inspiration and insight for us to carry with us and to help us live our lives. So thank you all for listening, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for your nice thoughts in the chat box. And let us continue in our service, Cantor.
Thank you, Rabbi. So This next part of our service is the Hashkivenu prayer, the nighttime prayer that we say for protection during uncertain time at night. You know, it's dark. And I definitely feel that this particular one I'm about to do for you is an original, and it's meant to be like a lullaby. I really do think that the words of this prayer make a lot of sense as a lullaby. So we'll put the transliteration up on the screen for you, and you can feel free to join me if you know, or feel free to sit back and just listen and let the lullaby flow. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom Ve'hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim L'Chaim Ufros Aleinu Sukkah Shlomecha V'tadnenu Beitzah milfanecha, v'hoshienu lema'an shemecha. Ushmo tzeiteinu uloenu l'chaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha, sukkah shlomecha. Baruch atah Adonai HaPoretz Sukkot Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Amo Yisrael Ve'al Yerushalayim. Amen.
Thank you, Cantor. What a beautiful song that you've written. And as you mentioned, it does sort of sound like a lullaby for this nighttime prayer that we have. And it reminds me, if I can beg your indulgence, I realize I told you who wrote chapter 1. I didn't tell you who wrote chapter 2 and 3. Some biblical scholars, one biblical scholar named Richard Elliott Friedman suggested it may have been written by a woman. That chapter 2 and chapter 3, with that very fascinating description and very down-to-earth and sensual description of God and Adam and Eve, the suggestion was put forth as that may have been a woman. It certainly was not a priest. You could tell it didn't sound like a priest who wrote chapter 2 and chapter 3. It's believed that that was a woman, either in the Davidic court, in King David's court, or maybe a couple centuries later, about the 9th to 8th century. And Harold Bloom picked up with that idea of Richard Elliott Friedman that maybe a woman wrote certain sections of the Torah, particularly that Adam and Eve story, and he talks about that at length as well. So it's just fascinating when you start analyzing these stories and having experts analyze it, what you discover. So it's nice to know that in what we consider to be maybe a very patriarchal society, that perhaps our most sacred texts may have been written by a woman who was not a priest, but who certainly was quite wise and quite brilliant and knew a lot about life. It's a theory. Nobody can prove it. Nobody signed the Torah and said this was written by me, but something to think about. Well, as we come into the evening of Shabbat and toward the end of our service now, let's spend a few moments, each one of us, in our very own silent prayer and contemplation.
We're going to conclude the silent prayer meditation with Shalom Rav, a prayer for abundant peace. So we'll put the words up for you momentarily on the screen. And I believe this melody will be very familiar to many of you, so feel free to sing along. I'll wait till we have the words up on the screen for you. There we go. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Atahu Melech Adon B'chol HaShalom. Ki Atahu Melech Adon B'chol HaShalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. B'tol beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. B'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Well, we turn now to page 22. Page 22, and as we do for our worship together, we open our hearts to people we know and care about who are in need of healing, healing of body and a healing of spirit, as we join together now in this Misha Berach prayer of healing.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
Well, we invite you at this time to offer the names of people that your prayer of healing is for. If you'll put their names in the chat box, and our prayer is for them. And as people continue to put names in the chat box, our prayer is also for all the folks listed on our Misha Berach prayer list. We're thinking of all of our temple members who are in need of healing, and of course myself, and I know a lot of people are thinking of our dear friend Larry Moskowitz, wishing him peace. We also, our prayers for all these family members who are in need of healing. And all of these friends and co-workers who are in need of healing, as we continue our prayer of healing together.
Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
we pray that they are all healed. And healing comes in many forms, many forms. Well, our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own family members who have died, our friends who have passed away, members of our community, members of every race and nation who have been a blessing to humanity. We think of them now. We honor them through our memory and through our prayer. As I mention the name of a loved one who has passed, I invite you to please stand, and then in just a moment we'll all stand together to recite the Kaddish prayer in just a moment. This Shabbat, we remember Rebecca Kaufman. We remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And we remember Howard Schwartz and David Bernstein, Stephen Strauss, Donald Allen Pocock, Susan Goldsmith, Cecilia Carpenter, Alan Loybin, Patricia Jacobson. We remember Florence Schwartz, Claire Cohen, Peggy Nichols, Lance Gershon, Simone Roman, and Debbie Blake. And for those who are observing Yahrzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one that is commemorated this week, we remember Howard Comras, Mimi Kaplan. We remembered Leonard Haas and Anne Haley, Benjamin Marks, Irving Klein, Karen Kiefer. We remember Harold Ribnick, Manya Rosen. We remember Eva Friedman, Elizabeth Murphy. We remember Paul Schneider, L. Glenn Saratin. We remember Bessie Mayer. We remember our dear friend Jack Spillman. We remember Arthur Fields and Irving Weiner and Louis Cohen, Maurice Greenberg, Sam Leff, Ellie Levy, Joseph Miller, Rose Oakham, Meyer Ossoff, Max Rudin, Arthur Scheller, and Diana Weinhausen. And I'm remembering Harold Bloom. And we invite you also to list in the chat box people that you are remembering, and our Kaddish prayer is for them as well. Well, we invite everyone to please rise as we turn to page 24 to recite the Kaddish prayer, thanking God that they were all with us. Together we pray, Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah,
Amen.
v'alma divarach Yiroteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chaye chon u'vyom echon, u'b'chaye d'kol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei d'Kudisha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. May we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And together we say, Amen. And please be seated, everybody.
We're going to conclude that session of prayers with the prayer for peace of Oseh Shalom. Please join me, and we'll put the words on the screen for you as well. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru
we are now honored to call upon Vice President here at Temple Sinai, Mr. Philip Hain.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for inspiring words and a wonderful Torah teaching, and also to Cantor for beautiful and inspiring music. We'd like to thank tonight's service participants, Emily Bergman for the candle lighting, Deb Johnson bravely stepping up to do the Ve'ahavta prayer, and Jackie and Jess Schechter all the way from St. Louis for the miracles reading. Tonight's virtual Oneg is sponsored by Angela Goby and by Marilyn Silva for the yard site of her grandfather, Paul Schneider. Coming up at Temple Sinai this week, we have lots of things as always. Tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. is Minyan and Torah study. And then on Sunday at 10 a.m. is the Sisterhood Membership Brunch. Social Actions Emotional Resiliency class will return this Monday at 7 p.m. And then the next evening, Tuesday at 7, is Rabbi's wonderful spiritual nourishment class. And then looking ahead to next Friday, Jewish meditation will be at 6:20 p.m. before our regular 7 p.m. Shabbat service. Again, Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, Philip, and thank you so much. Thank you for remembering everybody's name and everybody who participated. Thank you so much. And when you say good Shabbos, your family comes from Germany, yes?
Both parents, yes,
Both
born
parents.
in Germany.
Yes. So we're going to start saying that more often. I think we're starting a new tradition tonight. We're gonna say both Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you again, Philip. And Cantor, do you have your Kiddush cup ready?
Of course.
All right.
Give everyone a moment here to grab their Kiddush cups. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
And speaking of the traditional, this is a very traditional, I think, German melody. Julius Freudenthal. Seems like he's German. I'll have to look that up later. But in Kelohim, will pull up on the screen for you all. And you can join me for our closing song. Ein Keloheinu, ein Kadoneinu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadoneinu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. Jason, let's open it up for everybody to wish each other, however they'd like to wish each other, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.